Hello, now I'm going to introduce you to the web presentation patterns, um, where that implement the presentation logic layer of enterprise applications. And these patterns, in some sense, are agnostic of whether this is client side or server side. So we'll find them in both frameworks like Vue, when that implement these patterns on the client side, or in Spring that implement these patterns on the server side. So the main idea behind these patterns is that they are particular implementations of the model view controller pattern, in the sense that so probably model view controller has several ways that they are referred to it, but in this case, our focus is you are on the web, so you intercept an input. So you have a controller for the input to process the input, and then this controller interacts with the model, and in some point it just decides what to present and uses the view. So you can have all this code all together, but it's a good strategy, or is a good design to separate the view from the controller and from the model. Okay, so that's the main idea behind this. And you can organize these patterns in terms of course, if it is model view controller, you can organize them around the controller patterns. So you have the page controller, the front controller, and the application controller that basically explain different ways to organize how do you process these events, okay, these input events. And then you have the template view, transform view, and two-step view, where you basically need to deal with the generation, with the output. So basically, you just how do you process the input, and how do you basically produce the output that is going to be presented. Okay, so let's start with the controllers that process the input. And the first one is the page controller. And the idea here, the page controller is before you just execute your domain logic in the view, you have a piece of code that basically handles the request. So you receive the request. So this is an HTTP request, and you need to handle this HTTP request. You need to do some type of processing. So you receive all these what is in the header of the request. You need to process these all the information in the request, and by processing the information, for instance, for the programming language that is implementing the page controller, or that is in the server, when it is in the server, and then so you decide what to do in the business logic, and then you decide which view you are going to present. Okay. The page control is the basic one. So the main idea is that you associate an entity to deal with each type of request. So if you have 10 types of requests, you need to have 10 page controllers. There are basically two ways to implement this. One is with a script. So basically, in some point in your server, you associate this request to a particular script, and when you receive the request, basically you just delegate to the script to execute. Okay, and so you have it's more code-based solution. There's another solution that you can use for a page record that is more basically sought or defined when all the information was static. And when all the information was static in web servers, basically the address was actually the address of a page. Okay, so now that you need to have dynamic behavior, so you have a page, but inside this page, so the request is the request to an address that is a page, okay, and inside this page you have code that executes, okay, and so either you have a script or a page to implement the page controller. Then we have an evolution of it, and the evolution of it is the front controller. And now the main idea of the front controller is that in the previous case, basically you have a page controller for each type of, to handle each type of request. But after a while you realize that you keep repeating things, you keep repeating code, so you need the same code to read the header of the request and transform this into your programming language internal structures. If you do internationalization, for instance, you need to convert tokens into the strings in each one of the languages, or if you want to do access control or security, for instance, in our case where you have the tokens, how do you process the tokens? So you have some type of functionalities, some type of, that you need to execute in this for every request. So if you need to execute for every request, why not to have a front controller, so that all the first thing that happens is that this front controller handles all the requests, and does the common behavior for all the requests, and then delegates for each concrete command that deals with a particular request. Okay, so basically you have an handler that is common to all requests, and then you have actually a concrete command to deal with a particular request, and this is application specific in the sense, or domain specific, so where you have the logic about well, I'm getting a course, or I'm creating a course, or I'm producing something, okay, something that is specific of the domain is implemented here, and this is more what is generic in terms of the application, like security, internationalization, and so on. So another advantage of this is that allows you to dynamically, okay, add filters to these handlers, and we'll see that it's quite easy in these technologies to add things that basically add code that basically are included in this pipeline, and actually it's like a pipeline of processing requests. Okay, and you will find these front controller in for instance Spring Boot. Okay. Then you have another one that is a bit more complex, is the application controller. So is an extension. So after the front controller, basically what it does is just centralizes in one place what is common to all the requests. And basically this is not application specific, but sometimes in some interfaces, for instance, in wizard interfaces, you have a particular flow in your application. You know that and sometimes this flow is to guide the end user, the interaction of the end users. You present an interface, okay, and the user interacts with it, and then you decide what is the next interface to present. So in some sense, you can almost design a state machine related with the sequence of interfaces the user is going to interact with. And the application controller is a way to implement this state machine, so that you basically define an order of invocation, or you decide, so you include in the application controller what is the logic of the flow of execution of the interfaces. Okay. Then you have the ones that are related with the view, and you have one of the most used ones, which is the template view. And in the template view, we have this kind of language that is close to HTML, and we include inside this code. Okay, and so what is the idea? So templates views, you are going to produce the view, you are going to produce output you are going to send back as the response to the request. And the way is to structure the response you're going to produce, so to structure the views in terms of templates that are already like the way they are going to be presented. So this is particular close. So what you got defined, you define the HTML page of your response, and you just put some Java code or some data, not necessarily Java, but some data inside that. By changing the type of data, you can generate the different views with the same template. Okay. And this is what happens with Java server pages, ASPs, and it is quite common. Okay, even in Vue you have a template view in Vue.js. Okay, the main problem with this is that you should be careful because since this allows you to have code inside close to the HTML. If you start having a lot of code there, this is quite difficult to read because you are mixing HTML with code. Okay. One advantage of this is that this is good for web designers because basically web designers can look at the structure of the page, and sometimes you find a lot. What you see is what you get editors for this kind of template view that actually you can see what is going to be the real presentation of the page. Okay, looking at this. So basically you have here the structure of the page, and then you have a book helper that is basically where this page gets the data. Okay, that goes to the model, and then you use this data just to fill itself and to produce the final view from the template view. There's a complete different approach that is an approach that now the way you do is that you create a transformer. So you don't put the decision about what is the presentation in the H. So you don't enrich HTML. You produce HTML by creating transformers that read data and generate HTML. What is the advantage of this? This is a bit like pipe and filters, but the main advantage is like you can have a transformer for each type of data you want to present. So for instance, you can define, for instance, a transformer that knows how to present a person. Then you have another transformer that knows how to present a course. And then if you want to generate a page that includes a person and a course, you just put these two presenters, transformers together, and you generate them. So while in the template view you organize the output around what is the final structure of the output, so the page that you want to present here. So you structure, that's the way you structure your views. Here you structure your views in terms of what is the information you want to present. So you decide which information you want to present, and actually you create a transformer for each one of them. So then afterwards you use this transformer to generate. So now if you want to put together several, so in some sense, and this is a big difference, the transform view is more compositional. Okay, there are several disadvantages associated with this because since it is transformed, it's more difficult to customize particular pages. So, but on the other way, this approach provides a more uniform style in the presentation because you keep reusing these transformers. While when you have these template views, you can go to a specific view, template view, and just change it there. You can change the look and feel there. Maybe you can get a very great good look and feel in this page, but you cannot reuse it for other pages. So this is more helpful when you want to have probably not so nice or advanced or where you spend a lot of time to get a very nice, good look and feel for a particular page, but you can have a more uniform presentation for all your pages at a lower cost. Okay, and finally, we have something that is two-step view that is very common. And in all, for instance, if you have a WordPress site, you can configure your page, and it's just changing the schema. You just change the way that your page is presented. Why? Because they define actually two steps in your presentation. They define a logical view, and if you think every page is basically a tree of information, and you can define this tree of information, what is in this tree, without actually saying how it is presented. And then in the second stage, you pick, so you have this data, you just put the data together in these tree, you generate this structure that represents conceptually your page, and then you go to this page and then you add the elements, okay? And you may decide whether, for instance, your tree is started presented by a top bar or a lateral bar, and you can change the colors and things like that. So basically what happens, for instance, when you use WordPress is that, okay, this is your page, and when you change it, you are changing this second stage. In this second stage, you are changing the way you convert these conceptual page into your real page. And usually this is done by schema, and there are, for instance, people, web designers, for instance, that what they do is basically just to define schemas, and they sell you schemas. You buy their schema, and basically you get a very nice look and feel in your application. Okay. Okay, I think that's all, and enjoy reading this and learning about it.